Hello, I'm Galen Brown with Vermont Commons. I'm here with David Cobb of MoveToAmend.org. He's coming to Vermont to help us start a movement to amend the U.S. Constitution and make it clear that corporations are not people. So thank you for being here, David. It's been an interesting couple of days. Tell me your impressions of Vermont and our sort of context here, what you think is going to happen next, or what your vision is after a couple of days of touring.
Well, at the risk of sounding sycophantic, I got to tell you, I am more than impressed by Vermont and the engaged citizenry of this state. I have been traveling the country for the last several years trying to help spark a movement to make the promise of democracy a reality. Because for us, corporate personhood or corporate constitutional rights is at the very core of asking the question, who rules in this country? Because we know that unelected and unaccountable corporate CEOs are not merely exercising power, they are ruling us. As surely as masters once ruled their slaves or kings once ruled their subjects, these unelected and unaccountable corporate CEOs have hijacked our government, they've hijacked our media institutions, they've hijacked our healthcare institutions, they are making the decisions about what food we're allowed to eat, what kind of health care we get. We've lost control of this country. And what I found as I traveled Vermont is that engaged citizens not only know that that is a problem, but they're fighting back. And they're willing to fight back as part of a larger movement to amend the U.S. Constitution. But even or equally exciting is the fact that they're also creating alternatives to the corporate model. This state is replete with examples of community-supported agriculture, sustainable building and energy practices, ordinary citizens working together with their neighbors to actually get their needs met outside of the corporate capitalist system. So, it's not an either-or, it's a both-and. Yes, we need to create alternatives, and we need to amend the U.S. Constitution. So my impressions of Vermont, y'all are getting things done here.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you. So I think one thing that's a good clarifying point to make for people who maybe don't understand what Citizens United is about or what corporate personhood means. Is this about campaign finance? Is this about companies' abilities to state their positions and lobby and those kind of things? What we're really talking about is the very specific issue of constitutional rights that belong to people as granted by the Constitution, and not putting those rights as belonging to corporate entities that are not people. I mean, that's really the fundamental thing we're talking about.
The fundamental thing we're talking about is this. The U.S. Constitution makes it clear that the government, not the local, state, or federal government, can infringe upon and encroach upon the individual civil liberties of its citizens. And I, as a civil libertarian, support that principle and fight like hell anytime there are local, state, or federal laws that actually do infringe upon the rights of the people. And there are efforts where that has happened. I believe the Patriot Act, for example, is unconstitutional on its face. I certainly know for a fact that Jim Crow segregation laws that were passed at the state level were unconstitutional because they violated the rights of the African American citizens of those states. The point is this. I am not anti-corporation. I believe that corporations should exist. I believe corporations should engage in commerce. I do not believe that corporations can ever legitimately walk into court and claim that they have some sort of inherent inalienable rights that have been violated by the local, state, or federal governmental action, because they don't have inherent rights. Any rights that a corporation has comes from the democratic process. They're legal rights, yes, but not inalienable inherent rights of natural law recognized by the Constitution.
So it would be more rights that make sense relative to their corporate charter, but that they're not the same inalienable rights that people have under the Bill of Rights.
That's exactly right. And you've just nailed it. The corporations' rights can be described either by state charter, by their own individual charter. Their rights can be described by virtue of the corporation's election code or state law in any other way. And business people can rely upon those rights, but what they cannot claim is that they have inherent inalienable rights under law. And let me be clear about something. There has never been a case where a local merchant has waltzed into the United States Supreme Court and spent the millions of dollars that it takes to try to overturn a law. The only entities that have ever engaged in this process are the huge transnational corporations. And it's why I constantly make a difference between local merchants, independent businesses that are doing good work in their communities,
Right.
and these transnational corporations. They're not the same.
Right, because I think some of the people I've talked to about this, maybe they come on the right side, they may be on the conservative spectrum, and I get a lot of initial reaction where they instantly step back and act like this is an assault on organizational rights of association, groups of people getting together and speaking their mind, and thinking of a company as an example of people grouping together and speaking toward their positions. And I think it's an interesting distinction to make, that we're not saying organizations would not be able to speak their mind or have an impact or be involved. We're saying simply that they don't have inalienable human rights.
Correct. And I think that it's worth pointing out that there are talking points that say any effort on the part of the people to interfere or to engage at all or to fight back against corporations must be anti-business by definition.
Right.
And I simply disagree with that. That frame is incorrect, and I refuse to capture it. I will tell you this: we have Tea Party adherents who are participating with us at Move to Amend. Mm-hmm. There are libertarians who are participating with us who are at Move to Amend. The issue of corporations claiming constitutional rights cuts across political ideology. It cuts across political partisan labels. Principled liberals and principled conservatives, independents, all can agree on the idea that we, the people, are sovereign, and corporations are merely business entities. They're ways to concentrate and collect both money, capital, and human labor and get things done. Mm-hmm. We support that. But however, those legal fictions should never be able to claim constitutional rights.
Great. Well, thank you very much for coming and helping explain this to us and get the wheels turning here in Vermont. I think that things are set in motion. It'll be interesting to see where it goes and how quickly.
Well, and how quickly is the question. And I got to say, Vermont, I've had the privilege of looking at the Vermont Commons publication, and one thing that y'all seem to be aware of is that the current transnational corporate empire is failing, mm-hmm. And we will be wise if we both dismantle this empire as it comes crumbling down and build up the alternative institutions to take its place at the same time. It's not either or, it's both and.
All right. Well, thank you very much.